Hi there. Okay, so today we are going to be talking about the last practice in this model, the reach model of emotional intimacy. You've learned a lot along the way, I hope, and I hope you've been practicing these. So, just a quick review, the R is to reflect. It's being able to reflect what the other person is saying and to reflect their words. And the emotions, which is the E, is to reflect what they're feeling and even to share what you're feeling. This means the names of your emotions. The A is to affirm. And that is a little bit of that 1-2 punch, right? Where you affirm that they have certain qualities and values that you really appreciate and admire, and that you also get affirmation in what you're saying. Am I getting you right? Am I understanding where you're coming from? And then the C, which is care, which is really where you pull together your intention for having this kind of dialogue, that you really want to connect with them because the relationship is very important to you and that it means a lot that the two of you are close. And so now we come to H, which stands for humility. Probably not no one's particular favorite. I know certainly not mine. Now, this is the highest level of vulnerability and requires the most emotional maturity. I'll tell you, it is the most challenging, but also the most powerful. If you're able and willing to practice humility, you will see a level of closeness that very few actually experience. So, the first thing you want to do, again, really before you even start any kind of dialogue, but especially when you're maybe considering attempting humility, is to remind yourself of the goal. Like, why am I having this conversation? What is my goal? Because we have to consciously choose connection over control. It kind of goes against what our natural or normal instinct might be. So we have to really keep that in our minds, that what our whole purpose is in having any kind of dialogue with someone we want to be close to is not to be right and not to control what they're thinking and feeling, but to really connect with them. That's really the purpose. And another way to say it is that you're really letting go of your ego in this interaction in order to stay connected. So it's here that you make a decision. Decisions are very important in this phase of humility, and that you make a decision not to give in to the urge to control, the urge to defend, to blame, to fix, okay, in order to build closeness with the other person. Byron Katie has a great quote. She says, "Defense is the first act of war." And I found that to be true. So we have to make decisions when it comes to humility that we're going to give up these urges, these just tendencies that we have to do these things. So let's unpack that just a little bit more with these decisions. So, really, what we're talking about is deciding to let the other person have their own thoughts and feelings, even if they don't mesh with your truth, your understanding, but to give them permission to have whatever thoughts and feelings that they're having. This is particularly true if what they're sharing with you is something that may be a bit hard to hear. So you also, again, decide not to fix the other person. This is particularly hard for those of us who are empathic and who care very deeply about the other person. We we want to go into problem solving. We want to help them. And Dr. Burns calls it inflicting help on the other person against their will. Okay, remember that's not what we're doing here in the reach model. We're not trying to fix or help or solve. We're trying to connect. And often when we do give in to these urges, it's really not usually maybe not ever, with the first intention to try and get the other person to feel better. It's really because we're feeling uncomfortable and we really want to make them feel better so that we'll feel better. We also want to not give in to the urge to defend or blame. So, again, like I said before, you are giving up your need to be right and you're allowing them to even be wrong about you. Oh, I know. Oh, so hard. So hard. This is brave work. Okay. But again, it's very humble, it's very brave, but it's also very liberating if you're willing to give it a try. So let's talk about the practice. The practice of humility is that you're looking for the grain of truth in what they're saying. This is usually when you're struggling to understand them, or maybe they're saying something that may feel like an attack, is that you really look for, you know, maybe there is something here. Maybe wherever they're coming from, this is true for them. And being willing to see the grain of truth in what they're saying is also the antidote to that urge to defend, because when we see that truth, we're not trying to defend our flaws, right? We're not trying to get them to see things our way. We're willing to admit to our own humanness and acknowledge that, maybe they're right. Maybe what they're saying, or at least part of it, may actually have some truth, at least for them. And even if, again, coming back to the same premise, is that even if you can't find the grain of truth, because sometimes it's very challenging, you at least allow them, you give them that permission to have their own thoughts and feelings, to reflect them, to acknowledge what emotions they're feeling in that moment, to affirm the things you value about them, the things that are important, and the care, right? How much you really value the relationship and that you want to be close to them. So, here's some just practical things that you can say when you're stepping into humility. You could say something like, "You might be right." Okay. It's a bit of an offering, right? You may say something like, this is actually hard to hear, but it's possible there may be some truth in what you're saying. Um, you could also say, it's clear that I really haven't been there for you the way that you wanted. This is a good general one because it's, you're not struggling with the grain of truth process, but you're really acknowledging that if they're saying some things that are hard to hear, that you admit that they're hard to hear, and you acknowledge that wherever they're coming from, it's been hard for them. Like they haven't felt close to you, and that they haven't felt that you've understood them in the way that they wanted. Okay, are you brave enough? Are you willing? Are you daring to try humility? I really hope so. Now, this kind of vulnerability, as I said, it is the highest form of emotional closeness. And it is a way of really disarming and melting blocks to intimacy. It will create that kind of emotional intimacy that maybe you've only dreamed of having, but it doesn't come without a price. If you're willing to try it, it can be a really amazing thing. And if you're brave enough, I hope you'll let me know. Let me know how it goes. It's been so fun to go over all of these steps with you. I hope you will use the reach model when you can. Remember, you don't have to use all of them all at once. You can try, practice one at a time, or just throw out one or two as you're having a different dialogue. And just notice how things go, how you feel, how the closeness between the two of you feels. Now, next time, I'm going to give you a quick kind of example of how you might pull all these pieces together so you get a good idea of that. All right. I'll see you then. Bye bye.